Hello and welcome. Today, we're diving into something that's on a lot of people's minds, the war between Russia and Ukraine. We're going to try to understand why it's become this brutal, grinding stalemate. This conflict is causing just immense pain on both sides. It's costing so many lives, it's draining national treasuries, and that really brings us to the core puzzle, doesn't it? Why is a war that's so obviously hurting everyone involved so darn hard to end?
Well, international security expert Jim Walsh has a pretty blunt take on this. He says, ending war is often difficult absent a clear winner. Basically, if one side can't deliver a knockout blow, these things have a way of just getting stuck.
And that's exactly where we find ourselves. No clear winner. Walsh calls this a middle muddle, and I think that's a great way to put it. It's this messy, frustrating deadlock where the fight on the ground and the fight inside their heads are all tangled up together. And here's the absolute heart of the matter. The reason the fighting just keeps going? Despite all the suffering, both sides still believe, they truly believe, that they can achieve a total victory. This hope, this conflicting hope, is the engine that's keeping this stalemate running. So to really get why they're deadlocked, we've got to look at the two very different stories that Russia and Ukraine are telling themselves right now. And spoiler alert, they are completely incompatible. So it really breaks down like this. For Ukraine, it's a story of endurance. Their hope is, if we just hang on for another year, we can win this thing. They're banking on their own grit and, of course, on Western help. But then you've got Russia's hope, which is a waiting game. They're thinking, if I just hang in there, the Ukrainians will get sick of this whole thing and just give in. See the problem? When both sides think time is on their side, there's just no real reason to come to the negotiating table.
But all of this psychology, it's not happening in a vacuum. It's playing out against a backdrop of very real, very physical, and very economic pain. Both sides are absolutely suffering, but as we're about to see, the way they're suffering is totally different.
So a big part of Russia's strategy has been what's called strategic bombing. The theory behind it is that if you just drop enough bombs from the air, you can literally impose your will on another country and break their spirit to fight. The thing is, historically, that theory doesn't have a great track record. And as Walsh points out, you just have to look at history. He says, think about the Blitz in London during World War II. The belief was that relentlessly bombing the city would make the British surrender. But it did the exact opposite. It only steeled their resolve. And you can make a really strong case that Russia's attacks on Ukrainian cities are having that very same effect today. Now, the suffering in this war, it's completely asymmetrical. All the fighting is happening on Ukrainian soil, so they, as the expert puts it, taking the brunt of this right in the mouth. It's immediate, it's visceral. Russia's pain is different. It's more of a slow burn, a war of economic attrition that is running its economy into the ground. And that economic pain for Russia, some of their own officials have apparently warned that their economy could run out of money in as little as 1 year. Okay, so let's zoom out for a minute. How does all this look from the outside? It's interesting to take a look at the view from America, because public opinion over there has been shifting. So check this out. A recent Fox News poll shows a really significant jump. The number of Americans who think the U.S. should be doing more to help Ukraine went from 23% last October all the way up to 38% now. That's a big move. So what's going on there? Well, it looks like it's a mix of some pretty powerful stuff. You've got the natural sympathy for a country that's been invaded, sure, but then that gets amplified by all these awful reports of war crimes, these stories about children being abducted, and this general feeling that Putin is just going to bulldoze on ahead no matter what. But, and this is where it gets really fascinating, despite all that growing sympathy for Ukraine, when you ask Americans who they think has the upper hand in negotiations, a big majority, 58%, say it's Putin. Only 35% say Trump. And that probably comes down to the basics, right? Russia's bigger, it's got a larger military, and the war is happening on Ukraine's turf, not Russia. But here's the most crucial takeaway from all this polling stuff. At the end of the day, it might not really matter what Americans think. As Walsh makes crystal clear, wars are settled by the people fighting them. Outside opinions are interesting, but they don't force an end to the war. Only Russia and Ukraine can do that. So that brings us right back to the biggest question of all. If this mutual hope is what keeps the war going, and if outside opinions can't stop it, then what can? What does it actually take to break a deadlock like this one? Well, according to the experts, there's a pretty grim but predictable path for these kinds of situations. It's almost never some sudden breakthrough. It's a process. First, the long, grinding war just keeps going. Then, second, that war weakens both sides to the point of intense, almost unbearable pain. That leads to step 3, a point of mutual exhaustion. And only then, only at that moment of shared total desperation, can the two sides finally find a real reason to reach an agreement.
So the big question is, where are we on that path right now? Well, the tough truth, according to this analysis, is that we're simply not at that point yet. Yes, both sides are hurting, for sure, but neither has been weakened enough to give up on that dream of winning it all.
And that leaves us with this fundamental and kind of terrifying question. As both sides get closer and closer to exhaustion, while they still believe they can win, what's going to break first? Their will to fight or their resources to keep fighting? The answer to that is probably what will decide how and when this war finally ends.